In this portrait by Anthony van Dyck, every trim, colour and boot heel tells us something about how divided Britain was in the 1600s. It reveals a country about to be thrust into civil war. Hello, I am Amy Eloise Trend, a costumier and fashion historian, and today I will be talking about this fascinating portrait by Anthony van Dyck. Painted in 1638, this life-size painting shows two young aristocrats in their prime. They were also brothers. Their names were Lord John Stuart and Lord Bernard Stuart. At first glance, it appears to be a very normal portrait of the upper classes. The brothers are richly dressed with flowing hair, which goes along with the then fashionable image of swaggering cavaliers. However, by the time this portrait was painted, England was undergoing a big cultural change. We're beginning to see a backlash against people showing their wealth like this, which was associated with the king and the social group around him, the royal court. Parliament was growing more hostile towards the king, and the public was tired of his taxes. Van Dyck came to England from the Netherlands in 1632 and quickly became King Charles I's favourite painter. While earlier royal portraits could seem stiff and formal, his work introduced a distinctive aristocratic ease. This gave the idea that nobility was effortless, which supported Charles's increasingly unpopular belief that he had been chosen by God. This ease was of course specially staged, and the clothes the brothers wear are part of it. The first thing that strikes me with this painting is the contrast between the two brothers. They stand full length in front of a stone backdrop, one leaning back and the other stepping forwards. On the left, Lord John Stuart, the eldest of the two, is wearing warm colours like gold, amber and deep brown. His confident pose anchors the painting. He leans one arm nonchalantly against a stone plinth, barely acknowledging us. On the right, his younger brother, Lord Bernard Stuart, is very different. With a bent leg and twisted torso, he steps forwards, looking directly at us. He looks almost luminous. His silver satin catches the light with a liquid sheen, shifting as he moves. The blue accents in his breeches and cloak symbolise loyalty and duty. He even seems to lift his cape, inviting us to admire the rich silks beneath. Together, they show two opposite ideas of what being an aristocratic man in the 1600s should look like. One is about control and stability, and the other is about charm and display. Although it might not seem like it to us looking at this today, these fashions were very different to what had come before. By the 1630s, when this painting was created, dress had moved away from the rigid silhouettes, stiff ruffs and heavy clothes of the Elizabethan era. The upper classes embraced softer fabrics, flowing shapes and luxurious ornamentation from France. This was unsurprising given that Charles I had a French wife, Henrietta Maria. Their doublets here are well fitted but not rigid, shaping the body without restricting it. John's one on the left is slightly unbuttoned, revealing a clean white linen shirt beneath. This suggests an intentional carelessness and was a subtle signal that he was rich enough to keep his clothes unusually clean. The sleeves broaden into the fashionable leg of mutton shape. If you look at their shoulders, you can see that softer, full-in lace collars have replaced the stiff ruffs of earlier years. As the decade progressed, collars grew larger, perhaps to remain visible beneath the increasingly fashionable flowing hair that cascaded over aristocratic men's shoulders. Moving down the brothers' outfits, we come to the breeches. These reach below the knee, a change from what went before when breeches were shorter. The ones worn here have a lot of decoration, yet further proof of the brothers' wealth. At the brothers' feet, we find their boots. These were inspired by riding boots, which became fashionable during the reign of Charles I. even if you had no plans to ride a horse that day. The king had started wearing them to secretly help him with his walking, likely after suffering from a condition called rickets as a child, which would have made his legs curve outwards. If you look here on the boots, you can see these butterfly-shaped parts. These are called latchets and were originally there to hold spurs in place for horse riding. In this case, they are there just as a further excuse for decoration. Younger brother Bernard is wearing something called slap-sole overshoes, which were used for getting around muddy streets by raising him off the ground. They had the added advantage of making him look taller and would have made a slapping sound as he walked. The gloves here are the final touch. They are called gauntlet gloves and were originally designed to protect wearers' hands and wrists in combat, but by this time they were made of fine materials and used just as a fashion statement. Van Dyck paints these fabrics and materials with such a skilled hand that it feels as though we could reach out and touch them. Even the lace at the collars and cuffs looks realistic. But this portrait will always be haunted by what happened next. Within a decade, the world this fashion represents would begin to unravel. Rising tensions between Charles I and Parliament erupted in 1642 with the start of the English Civil War, in which people who supported Parliament fought against those who supported the king. This conflict ends with the king's execution and the violent collapse of the system this portrait so confidently presents. A few years after this artwork was created, both John and Bernard were killed on the battlefield. England's politics and its fashion had changed forever. This painting uses fashion as a language to say things about what the world looks like and where the wearers fit into it. The Stuart brothers are not just well-dressed young men, they are embodiments of 17th century privilege. In a few short years, they change from indulged aristocracy, glorified by a world-class artist like Van Dyck, to becoming victims of a country in crisis. This painting doesn't just show fancy fabrics, patterns and collars, it shows a country holding its breath. If you're interested in learning more about art history, click here or here and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.